All right. Thank you everyone for joining. This is another self-directed IRA Saturday with Quest Trust Company. So we're really excited to get into the meat of the presentation today. But before we do, a little bit of housekeeping for those of you who it may be your first time joining on to our Saturday classes. If this is not your first time, welcome back. Thank you guys for coming on. Just so you guys know, if you miss anything, or I understand it's Saturday, you got to leave midway, this is recorded and then we'll stay on YouTube. As soon as it ends, it will be on YouTube for you to replay, playback, share, whatever you guys need. So as I mentioned, we're going to go over a little housekeeping things about Quest Trust Company. If this is your first time, I really thank you guys for joining. Please let us know where you heard about us in the chat box. In the chat box, I'll also have Colin, one of our IRA specialists, so there to answer any questions that we can, or any questions for our speaker today, we will handle at the end of our presentation. So a little about us. If you don't know who we are and this is your first time and someone told you, hey, check out this awesome education for free on Saturdays, Quest Trust Company is a self-directed IRA custodian. We're the largest company, I think, in Texas in regards to self-directed IRAs. We manage $2 billion plus in assets, and we have a whole lot of cash sitting there. Clients of ours are constantly looking for investment opportunities. So if you are someone who has opportunities, please let us know. We have events for you that you can actually check out and see if you can find any investors. And likewise, for those looking for investments, please check out those events. Disclaimer before we kind of get into the meat of the presentations is, remember, we're here offering education. We're not giving advice. We're not endorsing anybody. We're really just trying to share our network with you guys so you guys can take that education and make the best decision for yourselves, right? So remember that. If you are brand new, you might not necessarily know what a self-directed IRA. Really quickly, it's not a magic type of IRA account. It's actually the similar same one you hear about at Fidelity, Charles Schwab, or Merrill Lynch, for example. However, what we can do with them is invest into alternatives. And so a lot of our clients are investing into real estate. And today's topic is talking about tenants and how to handle those properties that you will try to manage. And if you're an IRA holder with an asset inside or a property inside of that IRA, you should really be paying attention to this presentation. So that's kind of a little bit about what we do. We allow you to take retirement funds and invest them in what you know best, into opportunities that the stock market just cannot offer you, right? So that's kind of what we specialize in. A few of the investment choices that we have are real estate, private entities, and promissory notes. Now, when I mention investment choices we have, it's really investment choices that we can help you facilitate and invest into. However, everything you do is self-directed. So you kind of find those opportunities and you call us and you say, I want to do this with the capital in my retirement account. Then we can go on and help you do that, right? So these are just a few examples of what we do and what we handle on a daily basis. A lot of our clients are in the real estate, private entity, and the note space. Those are our three main categories. As I mentioned, if you are new or if you're a returning customer, well, then continue to join our webinars, right? We have weekly classes every single Tuesday at noon. You guys are joining right now our Saturday version of those classes. We have networking happy hours where we allow you to actually pitch opportunities or even listen to people that are pitching opportunities on a Zoom webinar instead of having to go somewhere. So those of you who are out of state, this is a fantastic opportunity for you. And then if you miss anything, as I mentioned, it's on our YouTube and our Facebook for you to check out. Just Google Quest Trust Company on Google. You should get our YouTube page that comes up, or just Google Quest Trust Company on the YouTube website and you'll find us. And please subscribe. If you're local to any of our offices, we have a social that goes on every single month, once a month per office that we hold. Right there are the dates that we hold them at. What we do here is we offer education and, of course, networking. You can network with service providers. You can network with individuals, investors, like-minded people like yourselves, and also get education from that speaker, again, that we bring on to talk to you in person. So definitely check those out if you are looking for more networking events to expand your business and opportunities that you may find. And then if you are a CPA watching this, thank you guys. What we try to do is we also educate on this niche topic. We believe that not a lot of people talk about this, and I believe that self-directed IRAs are getting more popular. We have a kind of network of CPAs, but not a whole lot of them really understand what is necessary or what a self-directed IRA does differently than when you're dealing with the traditional retirement accounts. And so if you are a CPA and you're looking for CPE credits in Texas, we actually offer that. We do the same thing for real estate agents, actually, but this time come around, we actually have on August 17th for CPA. So that's going to be a fantastic event. It's about 2.5 hour event, gives you that credit. We provide you lunch as well if you're there in person. But please share it with your CPA friends. And then the live happy hour. So if you are in the Austin, San Antonio area, so our Austin office out there constantly goes to San Antonio for some events. We're actually opening our own happy hour up there. So we are trying to get into that market and help you guys out that are maybe not want to make the drive from San Antonio to Austin. But if you're in that area, please check out Thursday, August 25th. We'll have a happy hour, drinks on us. Come out and enjoy. And then our biggest event of the year, the Quest Expo. This is a multiple hundred people person event. More than 50 plus vendors and service providers and investment providers, and more than 30 plus speakers that are coming out to teach you what their expertise is in, right? So if you're looking for an opportunity to kind of dive into the alternative space, see what opportunities are out there, not just for your retirement account, but for you in general, this is a fantastic opportunity to do so. It is here in Houston, but you can come from anywhere. We have room blocks, whatever you need. Give us a call if you are interested in the Quest Expo. This is the only event that we sell tickets for because it costs a whole buttload to put on these massive events. So please check this out. Scan the QR code for more information. You can see that. And I'm pretty sure our schedule of the day one is coming out, so you can kind of get a feel for what that day will look like. And we have 2.5 days of pure content and networking opportunities. And then this month we have an unlimited account. So if you're opening accounts but need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we will only charge for one of those accounts. You can open as much as you need for you and your family. So please take advantage of that. If you kind of been holding off because maybe it's costly to open multiple accounts, but you know you have to have multiple. Well, right now is a fantastic opportunity to take advantage of that. Colin, the moderator, is gladly able to open an account for you guys and help you through that process. So please take advantage of our month's promotion, which is multiples 22. Refer a friend if you are a client of ours. Refer is a promo code that consistently goes throughout the year. You get credit, they get credit, lowers your fee costs. There's no limit to how many people you can refer to us and how much credit we can give you for doing so. So if you do refer someone, make sure they tell us that you got referred so that you get credit and they get credit as well. But take advantage of that. And then lastly, before we get into what you guys came for, get in touch with an IRA specialist. We have a chat box that goes on during the week, 8:30 to 5:30 p.m. or one of us, myself, Colin, or one of our team members will actually be on that chat and answer any questions you have very, very quickly. We have a phone, 855-FUN-IRAs, and our email address. So if you need anything, whether it be to open an account, whether it be just ask a simple question, or to really find out how to do everything, well, schedule a call with us. It's completely free. We don't make any commissions. We're there to help you, waiting to help you. So please reach out to us. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring Joni up. Joni, I know you have a very interesting topic. I get questions all the time where people are actually have physical real estate assets in their retirement account or just in general, and they don't realize how much of a pain in the butt it can be when you deal with broken tenants, right?
Absolutely.
So I think you're going to enlighten us on what people should be looking out for, and with your expertise, kind of what you've seen and what you know. So please take stage.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Juan, for having me here today. I'm excited to be sharing my knowledge of property management. And my hope today is that you take some tips and tricks with you to help grow and scale in your rental portfolio. So, but before I get into it, I'll kind of give you a brief bio on myself. So my name is Joni Wolfswinkel, for those that don't know who I am. I actually started my real estate career, my real estate journey when I was 19 years old. I was actually going to school at the University of New Mexico, and really wholesaling properties to get me through college. And then after college, I decided I wanted to go into pre-foreclosure investing. So I did that for a number of years. And that was it was fun because it got me out of my comfort zone, knocked on doors, made agreements with homeowners, all that good stuff. And then in 2008, 2009, the market was very similar to how it is today, right? Recession was about to hit and people were freaking out. I had a few friends that, went under and over leveraged themselves. And I turned to my husband. I was like, hey, look, we got to be doing something different. I cannot be flipping houses for the rest of my life. I need to go ahead and create some passive income and some residual income. And so at that moment, we actually transitioned and started selling turnkey real estate investments to investors. And we would professionally manage for the investors. So it was one of those things that we just took a leap of faith and did it, and it worked out for us. And today I manage over 1,800 homes in 2 different markets in Houston, Texas, and Albuquerque, New Mexico. I have over 58 rental properties in my portfolio, a commercial building, a self-storage complex in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And then in 2020, I worked my butt off like a lot of you guys, and I was named Housing Wire's Women of Influence for 2020. And I published my first book called The choice is yours, balancing success as a wife, mom, and entrepreneur. So that's available on Amazon if you guys are interested. And then I also have a podcast called Inside the Wolf's Den with my husband. It's an entrepreneurial podcast. Have a ton of awesome entrepreneurs and guests on the show. Eddie Speed, which is one that you guys are familiar with. He was on that. So I encourage you guys to check that out. It's on every major platform. So with that being said, so our agenda today is learn why property investors should be aware of the processes that must be taken to properly and legally screen tenants to protect yourself and your investment properties. What is tenant relations? How do you market and advertise for the right tenants? How do you connect the two to become a successful real estate investor? And what are property management current tips and best practices? As Juan mentioned before, there's a lot of moving parts in this business, and I want to equip you to make the right decisions as you grow and scale your rental portfolio. So some of you can agree that for the best returns on your investments, you need to properly screen your tenants, right? And I think this is the biggest mistake that I see investors make today, is not putting that effort into properly screening. And why is that? Well, number one, they just don't know what it takes to properly screen, right? They may not have the right resources, tenant screening, background checks, all that goes into it. And then also I see a lot of investors go off emotion and gut feeling, which today you can't go off emotion and gut feeling anymore. You really have to, no matter if it's one rental property or if it's 20 rental properties, you need to take the time to properly screen your tenants. If not, it can lead to evictions, loss of rental income, vandalism, theft, lawsuits, fair housing claims, and sometimes a combination of all three of those things. So take my lovely investor friend Bud, for example, and I call this the tenant on there as hot pants, because I try to do a cash for keys with this tenant, trying to get her out of her property. And every time I showed up there, she was wearing hot pink yoga pants, working out, and like life was, perfect, and she's not paying her rent. But so my client friend, in 2018, he purchased a property, and he thought that he was going to go ahead and rehab the property himself. He had taken a couple of classes, and so he obviously had a job, and so he did this on the side on nights and weekends. It almost took him 6 months to rehab the property. Once the rehab was completed, he decides, okay, I'm going to put this property on the market and try to self-manage it himself. He did that. He put the property on Craigslist, and he found a tenant, aka Hot Pants. And she contacts Bud, and she says, hey, Bud, I'm just trying to get back on my feet. I really need some help. My credit's not that good. Can you please help me out? And he's like, I'm going to help you out. So he does. And she rents the property. Month 1 is okay. Month 2 is okay. Third month, she starts to pay late. And Bud's like, hey, what's going on? And she's like, I lost my job. I'm trying to get back on my feet again. And so forth. And then COVID hits. Guess what? She stops making her rent payment altogether. Still to this date, she has not made her rent payment. This is in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The laws are not, as in Texas, are a little better. Obviously, we can get a tenant out a lot quicker. New Mexico, maybe not so much. Now, Bud is almost out $38,000 and lost of rental income. And Hot Pants is still currently in the property. So question to consider is, how long will it take to recoup Bud's investment, right? It's going to take a long time. And, he's already has a bad taste in his mouth. Will he ever purchase a property again? Probably not. And it was all because he didn't properly screen the tenant, went off gut feeling, and he went off emotion. So again, guys, properly screening your tenant is crucial and vital in this business. So let's get started with properly screening your tenant. So who in here knows the 7 protected classes within the Fair Housing Act? And why do you think that is so important? Well, it's important because you can't discriminate based on the 7 protected classes, right? And I see investors making this mistake all the time in their marketing when they get applications. And guys, as you grow and scale your renter portfolio, you're going to be a target. And whether you think so or not, or whether you meant to do it or not, tenants are going to use you as as a target. So be aware of that. And so we're going to go through the 7 protected classes. So the 7 protected classes start with race, color, religion, national origin, sex, disability, and familial status. Okay. So housing discrimination in Texas, it's illegal for anyone to advertise or make any statement that indicates a limitation or preference based on race, religion, color, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. This prohibition against discriminatory advertising applies to all housing, including single family and owner-occupied housing that is otherwise exempt from the Texas Fair Housing Act. Harass, coerce, intimidate, threaten, or interfere with anyone exercising a fair housing right or assisting others who exercise that fair housing rights. Under the Act and Texas Fair Housing Act, no one may take any of the following actions in the sale and rental of housing or in mortgage lending based on race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. Again, I see investors, violate the Fair Housing Act all the time, and you need to be aware of this. We'll start with race discrimination. So examples of race discrimination include a Craigslist ad says that housing is available for white applicants. A Black person answers a newspaper and for an ad for an apartment. The landlord tells him that the apartment has already been rented. It turns out the apartment was not rented, and the landlord later rents it to a white applicant who answers the same ad. A landlord evicts a white tenant from her mobile home because her Black friends visit her there. Guys, I see this all the time, and I just had this happen last week where I had an investor call me and says, Joni, I have a property and, it's a clean area and I only want to rent to Hispanic families. And I had to explain to him that you can't do that, right? Not knowing he didn't do it on purpose and not knowing that, he's violating that. But again, this happens all the time and you will be a target. So be aware of that. Familial status discrimination. Examples of familial status discrimination include refusing to rent to families with children, evicting families once a child joins a family through example, birth adoption, custody, requiring families with children to live on specific floors or in specific buildings or areas. Anyone securing legal custody of a child under 18, pregnant women. So again, I have this happen all the time where I have investors say, this is not a child-proof home. I do not want children living in my property. Well, that is a violation of the Fair Housing Act, and you will be fined for it if a tenant turns you in. So just be aware of that, guys, in your marketing and, and when you're accepting applications as well. Disability discrimination, even if it's obvious that you're disabled, for example, you use a wheelchair or wear a hearing aid, it is nevertheless illegal for the landlord to ask for more information about the disability, including how severely you are disabled. There's only so much that you and I can ask a disabled person, right? And so one common thing is emotional support animals or assistance animals. We get this all the time in our business. I'm sure that you have as well. And there's only so much that we can do, and if you have a no pet policy and you get an accommodation request, are you allowed to deny them? No. Can you collect a pet deposit? No, you can't, right? And so the hard part is that with these assistance animals, we're seeing that almost anybody can register their animal online as an emotional support animal, right? And that's all they need to turn in is a certificate. So what's the solution? It's frustrating for us landlords, for property managers, because it's like we're stuck. Like we don't know if it's legitimate or not, right? And then we turn out once the tenant is out of the property, we find that they've damaged the property. And so, yeah, it's extremely frustrating. So we've actually had a solution called petscreening.com. And I would write this down because this has saved us in numerous lawsuits, complaints, and basically we are screening our pets just like we screen our applicants. So they get a PAS score from a 0 to 5, right? 5, being obviously a good pet. And so what's interesting is that with the accommodation requests, so they actually have to go through pet screening, and pet screening will get doctor's authorizations, doctor's notes stating that this is a legitimate emotional support animal. And if they don't provide the proper documentation to pet screening, then pet screening is not going further. And so therefore they don't get into the property. So we're seeing about 80 to 85% of applicants that say that they have an emotional support animal don't go through because they cannot complete the pet screening process. So this is crucial, and it's also crucial for tenants that say that they don't have pets, because through pet screening, they have to sign an addendum saying that the pet is not staying at the property, they're not visiting the property, there is no pet absolutely in the property at all, right? And so if we do find that there is during an inspection or whatnot, then that is a violation and we can file eviction for it. And I've actually had this happen too. So last year I had an applicant that applied for the property and said, hey, I don't have any pets, and they had great credit score, so we moved them into the property. And then a month later, we get a call from the HOA, and the HOA says, hey, your tenant is roaming, has 3 pit bulls that are roaming the neighborhood, and they're not on leashes. I'm getting complaints from neighbors that, they're afraid that this dog's going to bite them. And I looked at the application, I'm like, there's no way, because I looked at this application myself. There's no pets. So sure enough, we did an inspection on the property, and there were 3 pit bulls in there. Didn't tell us. And so we ended up filing eviction on him because of this, right? Because he signed the addendum saying that he didn't have any pets. So we go to court, and of course he says that they are emotional support animals, right? And so because we had this documentation from pet screening, we were able to evict the tenant. Later on, he tried to file a fair housing claim stating that he was disabled and we were discriminating him based on his disability. Well, this pet screening document saved us from that. So again, guys, use these programs and this software, because it will help you in the event that you come into a situation like this. Color discrimination. Color discrimination can involve someone of a different race or the same race. For example, if a landlord or other housing provider only rented to lightly skinned African Americans, but not those who are darker skinned, that would be an example of color discrimination, regardless of the race of the landlord. Religious discrimination, refusing to rent to women who wear turbans, harassing tenants because of their religious practices or dress calling Muslims terrorists. I've had investors mark it on their for their properties that it's near a Catholic church. So again, being mindful of what you put into your marketing information, right? Sex discrimination, sexual orientation discrimination, discrimination that is based on the person's actual or perceived orientation. So again, knowing the 7 protected classes is the first step to properly screening your tenant, because you need to know what you can and what you cannot say, right, in your marketing and also when you're responding to applicants. The second thing I will say is properly screening your tenant, as well as verifying the income sources. Now, tenant fraud is an actual thing, right? We are seeing it more and more today. And really during COVID we're probably getting about 10 to 15 fraudulent applications a month. So you really have to dig through, and you have to have processes and procedures for this in place, guys, because if not, you will be the victim. And to be able to get a tenant out, you're going to be like Bud, right? Bud is still dealing with that situation. So always ask for 3 months worth of bank statements so you can verify to make sure that the check stubs match, right? Because we are seeing that they're providing fake check stubs. There's these software programs out there that you can alter your paycheck stub. So, and then also completing employer verification, right? And checking the information thoroughly, making sure that the storyline makes sense, because you will notice that you'll find some inconsistencies within that. So first, just a visual analysis. Do they even look right? The templates, the paycheck stubs, do they look right? Fonts, round numbers, all that good stuff. Does the story make sense to you, right? I'm going to show you an applicant that we had that just was caught for fraud, obviously. And she's saying that she makes $100,000 a year as a cashier, Walmart cashier. Could that be? Maybe, but it doesn't make sense, right? It's a red flag, and you should be aware of that, and you should ask for additional documentation. And if you have the slightest suspicion, ask for additional documentation. About 75% of fraudulent applications die the minute that you ask for additional documentation. So Just be aware of that. This is kind of what a fake paycheck stub looks like. Obviously, if you can see it, we just received this probably 2 weeks ago, and it, right here it shows that they didn't give enough information. There's no address on there. It just looks fake. It looks like it's a red flag, right? So just be mindful of that. This is an example of an ID that doesn't look right. So if you look, actually, this applicant came to the office, and on her driver's license it says she has green eyes. She definitely doesn't have green eyes. She has brown eyes, right? And if you look at the date on there, the date is incorrect. She says that her birth date is 1988. Well, underneath her chin, it actually says 1982. So really looking at these documentations thoroughly to make sure that, you're not missing anything. And then if you do suspect that you have a fraudulent application, how should you handle it? Politely ask for additional documentation. And then simply request the information. Don't give a reason. Be firm, assertive, and tactful. The next thing is verifying a current employer. So this is one thing that I see investors overlook all the time. And the reasons why is because it takes too long, right? It might take a day or two to verify the employment. But guys, I'm telling you, a day or two is a lot better than getting an applicant or a tenant in the property and then you can't get them out, right? And so this should be in your process, your screening process. And there's a basic script for you right here. Hi, can I speak to so-and-so? I'm calling in regards to the tenant is applying to rent my property. I want to verify some information. So again, guys, put this in your process and procedures. And then verifying a current employer. So these are some kind of reference questions. Can I speak with the supervisor? Can I have your name, please? Is the tenant current? Is this the current employer? Is the applicant full-time or part-time? What is the hire date? What is the applicant position here? All this should be in your processes. I would take a screenshot of this because this should be in your process. Checking social media platforms. This is huge as well. You can get so much information off social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and look for inconsistencies. Are they married when on the application they say they're living alone? No pets when they said that they have pets. We catch this all the time. Place of employment, does it match what's on their application? We've also caught that as well. Pictures on driver's license doesn't match their picture on the platform. Are they affiliated with any hate groups? And also, what's their behavior like on social media, right? All these things you can get off of there. And then rental verification, making sure that you complete a rental verification with at least 2 past landlords. And the reason why I say 2 past landlords is because number one, the current landlord might be just wanting to get rid of the tenant. And so they're going to say nothing but good things about them, right? And so at least 2, I would say 3 if you can, right? And here are some current landlord questions to ask. Are you currently renting to this tenant? Has he paid on time? All these things, again, should be in your process. When does the lease end? What's the monthly rent amount is he paying? What do you rent to him again? So take a screenshot of this, guys, and put this in your processes. And here are some previous landlord questions as well. Did you formally rent to this tenant? Did he pay on time? Was there ever any neighbor complaints or noise complaints on the file? Do you know when he moved in and out? How much was he paying for rent? What's the address? Was he evicted from the property? All this should be in your process. And just some takeaways for in property management. So number one, do not procrastinate, right? Schedule periodic inspections. So at the minimum, you should be doing at least 2 inspections a year. And the reason why is number one, you want to get into the property to make sure the tenants are complying with their lease. They're doing what they need to be doing, right? Also, join an air filter program. So we are big on preventative maintenance, and you should also be big on preventative maintenance, right? If you want the tenants to take care of the property, you also have to take care of the property. If you want your tenants to stay in there long term, you have to take care of the property. So we have air filters drop ship to our tenant's door each month. And we do that because it's a mindset thing. If they're dropped at their door, then they remember to change them. So it's happened to me a couple of years ago. We went on vacation and my husband forgot to change the air filter before we left. Well, we came back into town and our whole entire system was frozen. And so guess what? I put him on this air filter program where it's drop shipped to his door so that he can remember to change out his air filter. So it works. Schedule pest control after move outs. Again, preventative maintenance is key, guys. And I think that's probably the biggest mistake that I see investors make also is not budgeting enough for repairs or not doing any repairs. And then at the end of the day, they wonder why they spent so much money throughout the years because they didn't take care of anything, right? Protest your property evaluation. So this is key. As you guys know, values have been increasing. And in order for you to keep your property taxes down, you should protest them, right? And I think the misconception is that, that's going to hurt the values of my home. And it's not, guys. Protest your property taxes should be key on every one of your rental properties. Have roof inspections and conducted after major storms. So we are in Houston. We've had ice freeze. We had hurricanes. And so making sure that you are inspecting your roofs, that way you can take advantage of, insurance if you need to, right? That's what it's there for. And then educate your residents on the location of the water shutoff valve. So we have emergency manuals for everything, for every major storm, whether it's a hurricane, whether it's a ice freeze that we just had to update it because we have never been in an ice freeze. But you'll be surprised that tenants do not know where their shutoff valve is. Educate them, making sure that they know everything about the property before they move in, because when these storms hit, and they will, you want to make sure that they are protected and also your property is protected, right? And treat this like a business or a true investment. The home will need improvements over time. Again, budgeting enough for your repairs is going to be key to maximizing return on your investment property, right? The key is that you should probably budget each month a percentage of your rent. So that way, when you do have those major repairs, then it's going to be a lot easier and it's not going to be as much of a burden, right? To fork up the money if you had to. And it's all about speed and efficiency. Take Bud, for example, at the very beginning of my presentation. Bud, he took almost 6 months to renovate a property because he didn't have the resources. He didn't have the time. And so just factor what 1 month's loss of rental income can do to your return. So, when you're looking at this, look at, okay, how can I maximize return on my investment? And that's one way, is hiring somebody that knows what they're doing, right? And so what is happening in the market right now? So supply issues, there's more buyers than homes, which is no surprise. And our NAR report, it would take 2.1 million homes each year for a decade to make up the shortage. Building has become more difficult with government regulation and red tape, material supply issues, raising costs, shortage of labor. We do a lot of build to rent in the Houston market. And, we're still dealing with issues with permitting, right? Getting out of permitting quick enough. And then also supply issues. We're still dealing with that, even though that, it's gotten better. We still have a ways to go. And we're having to plan ahead, to make sure that we get the materials in time for our building. And then supply shortage on resale homes as well. Less people are selling, boomers are living longer. So we continue to have a shortage of inventory, right? And this is also no surprise, huge growth in Texas. This actually comes from economist John Burns. So if I highly recommend that you follow him. He actually consults with a lot of the big time home builders. And this right here is projected household growth by region in the millions. So between 2016 and 2025, there's going to be 5.3 million more homeowners and 7.2 more million renters. So despite where the market is headed, there's going to be a need for homes, for home ownership and renters, right? In Texas alone, that's 1.9 million. So this is really good news. Finally, what are we seeing locally? So in property management, and you may not know this, but there's a lot of moving parts, as you can imagine, right? And so something that we are seeing is we're seeing tenant holdovers and longer delay on evictions. Of course, COVID didn't help any of that, and it's not helping it. We have had a hard time with tenants filing appeals, so that's taking a little longer. And so if you are looking to possibly sell your property or investment property, I want you to keep that in mind, because that is something that we have actually run into lately is, we've given notice to tenants because investors want to sell, and then the tenants decide they can't find anywhere to live, right? Because it's gone up. They can't, there's a shortage of inventory, so they can't find anything. And so we have tenants that have held over the properties, and then getting them out has been a difficult situation. So keep that in mind. Security deposit lawsuits and increase in lawsuits in general. Yeah. So if you don't know the laws when it comes to security deposits, I highly recommend that you read up on that, because if you're collecting a security deposit from a tenant, you have 30 days from the time that the tenant moves out to finalize the tenant's security deposit, and it has to be itemized. So keep that in mind. If it's not, we are seeing more and more lawsuits today regarding that. And if you get caught with that, it's 3 times the amount of the rent amount. So, keep that in mind, making sure that you have processes and procedures in place for that. Again, protest your property tax. Your values are up, and you want to make sure that you are trying to keep those taxes down. And increase rents and challenge values. Don't be afraid to increase rents. Rents are going up everywhere. And I'm seeing investors that are kind of gun shy to increase rents. Maybe they've had a tenant that's been leasing, for a number of years, and they are afraid to increase the rents. Guys, it's everywhere. It's happening. Do what you have to maximize your returns, because your property taxes are going up. Your insurance is going up. Everything is going up. So to maximize your return on investment, you have to increase the rents and also challenge those values. And price shop your insurance rate yearly. Since the freeze, we are noticing that insurance has skyrocketed. So each year you should be price shopping your insurance. And I know I didn't mention priorly, but making sure that the tenants also have insurance. It's something that we actually make sure in our company, is that anytime a tenant moves in, they provide their renters insurance. If they don't, then we're putting a forced policy in place for them. And the reason why we do that is to protect you guys, right? Because in the event that, say, and it's happened to me before, where we've had a tenant who decides to go out of town and accidentally leaves the faucet running, right? And it floods the property. And I've been able to get the insurance, the tenant's insurance company, to pay because of that. So it's crucial that you have insurance for the tenants. If not, put a forced place policy in place for them. And then, of course, sell when it makes sense for you, right? You should be monitoring your investments from one property to the next, whether it's one property or 20 properties. You want to see what your income and expenses are. If you're seeing that, one property has more expenses than the other, maybe it's time to sell that one and move to a different property, right? So again, sell it when it makes sense for you. And if you're thinking about hiring a professional management company, which I highly recommend that you do, obviously, because there is so much that goes into managing a property. Here's a list of questions that you can ask them to vet property management companies, right? How many rental properties do you manage? What criteria do you use in coming up with the rent amount? How many staff members do you have? What type of properties do you manage? If you have a single family property, you probably don't want a multifamily property management company, right? Is there a maintenance reserve requirement? Do you require renters to have renter insurance? We just talked about that, right? Making sure that they have a policy in place for that. What are your income and screening requirements for applicants? They should have a pretty detailed screening process. I know we do, and as you can see, it's pretty thorough. How do you collect rents from tenants? What control do I have over the lease agreement? What is your timeline for evictions? This is crucial, especially in today's market, making sure that eviction is filed when the tenants don't pay rent, because time is money, right? What steps do you ensure that I'm getting quality tenants? What's your average response time to owners and tenants? Communication is key in this business. We contact our owners once a month, despite if it's good or bad. We want to make sure that our owners know what's going on with their property. Do you conduct property inspections? Again, this is key as well, as you want to make sure that the tenants are complying with their lease and doing what they have to be doing. How do you market properties, right? So all these questions are great property management questions if you are looking to hire a property management company. And just to recap, so knowing your 7 protected classes, this is crucial. If anything that you get out of this presentation, this is key right here, because you need to know what you can and cannot say when marketing a property, when speaking to applicants, because as you grow and scale your business, you will be a target. And so you want to make sure that you are protected there. Properly screening your tenants. So you should have a detailed screening process from start to finish, right? From the time that you screen the tenants with credit to verifying income, employment, also rental verifications, all of that, making sure you have a thorough screening process. Set your fix or repair budget and be proactive, right? So again, if you want the tenants to take care of your property, you also have to take care of the property. So making sure that you're budgeting enough for repairs. Each month, you should at least take a percentage of that and set aside for any major repairs. Protest your property valuations, because again, it is going up, values are going up. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. And then also stay abreast of current market conditions. Follow somebody like John Burns, economist John Burns. He's fantastic. I know there's tons of others out there, but really know what's going on in the marketplace. With that being said, that's pretty much my presentation today. This is actually my contact information. So if you scan that, then you will get my contact information, and you feel free to email me, call me. If you have any questions property management wise, I'm here to help you. And thank you so much, Quest, for having me.
Sorry, I was mute. But that was a great presentation. I actually took some notes here and some tips as well. I wanted to ask you something quickly, so we can, and Colin, if you're on the chat, please put it there so everyone can see. Do you mind repeating that website for the pets?
Yes. Petscreening.com.
Cool. Colin, if you can put that on the chat, that'd be great. Petscreening.com. I thought that was super helpful, pretty neat trick. I always hear that some service animals can be very out there. What's the craziest service animal you've seen?
Actually, we haven't got any crazy ones. Yeah. Like other than a dog, we haven't really had much. Yeah.
I hear stories about like a peacock can be one and things like that.
I mean, they can, but I haven't had that.
Yeah, that'd be funny. But no, so I think we can answer some questions here. Let me go from in order that they came in. Let's see here. This is the first one I have. So Esme, if you're looking for a housemate, do those discrimination laws apply? So if they're looking for a particular gender, age group, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. It applies.
It applies. Cool. Easy enough. Esme. Someone said an emotional support ferret. That'd be something. Someone was under the impression that they could not require driver's licenses for applicants. Is that true?
No, that you can ask for a driver's license.
Okay. Is that based on state or?
It could be. I know that in Texas and New Mexico, we are allowed to ask for that. So those are the 2 markets that I work in. So I would recommend, if you think that you're not allowed to, then maybe check your state just to make sure.
Cool.
Because I will tell you, and that's a new thing too, when you're evicting tenants, right? That is something that the judges are actually asking us, is that, okay, let me see the entire application. Let me see the driver's license. Let me see the social security number. So they're asking for that information even before we actually go to court.
Yeah. How to screen in favor of or against Section 8 applicants, depending on your strategy as landlord.
The screening applies also to your Section 8 tenants as well. Of course, Section 8 is not protected class. So, I have investors that say, I don't want to do Section 8, and that's fine. You don't have to. Honestly, Section 8, I have one of my personal rental properties is Section 8, and I like it only because Number one, it's they pay like clockwork, right? The only difficult part is getting through the application process with Section 8 and also the inspection process. But for the most part, it's great.
Awesome. And, well, here's the website, guys, for pet screening. If you guys need to catch that, petscreening.com. What is the largest number of units in a single property you would manage?
So I have some 72 units. I think the largest I have is 72 units, but we will go up to 150.
Okay. There's one question I had actually. So in discussing kind of, I think one of the biggest things you mentioned is like the property values are consistently increasing. So kind of taking care of your cash flow and your expenses, that's going to be taxation. So you mentioned protesting those property values. Is there a certain method to go about that for someone who does not know how to protest that?
Yeah. So actually, if you, one company that we use is saveonhousetaxes.com, and I'll put it in the chat. I recommend that you actually use a service provider because they know what to expect. They, a lot of these guys like Save on House Taxes, they actually used to work for some of the big firms. And so they will fight for you to make sure that those taxes don't increase. So if you don't know what you're doing, I would highly recommend that you hire somebody like saveonhousetaxes.com. And what's nice is that if they don't save you any money, they don't charge you anything. They charge you a percentage of what they save you. So it's really, it's a no-brainer to do it.
Right. Cool. That's good to know. Any last question, guys? Oh, there we go. Someone said that they use a, what's this here? Cantrell McCullough and DFW. So I guess there's different places you can go.
Yeah, there's different places. Yeah. So again, I mean, I think referrals are the best. So I mean, if you've used Cantrell McCullough and DFW, and you've had a great experience. I know that we've had a great experience with Save on House Talk. I think they're also in Dallas as well, in Austin, Save on House Taxes.
Cool. A few questions came in. We still have time, so we'll roll through them. Can you talk about birds and aquatics life as it relates to pets? So a parrot, whatever else you can think of, I guess, and a goldfish.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I mean we don't actually get a lot of that, and anytime pet screening will send us a notification, a lot of times like these ones right here, they don't pass through the pet screening. They don't have enough documentation, and they can't get a doctor authorization to say that they are an emotional support. But for somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, like a landlord that's self-managing or even property management companies, there's only so much that you and I can say, right? And so they're allowing these as emotional support animals.
I feel like, something like aquatics, right? You have them in a fish tank. I feel like that's something that a tenant can easily also keep them hide from you, right? So what do you do in that situation if they're hiding that from you and you don't want aquatics at all in case the tank breaks or whatever?
And again, if that's the case, then semi-annual inspections or inspections to catch those things. It is a little harder to evict tenants based on that anymore today, especially, but you can. And so if you have a no policy when it comes to that, just making sure that you are consistent with the inspections is going to be key. And then also signing the addendum with pet screening stating that, they do not have any of that. And because that's also in the addendums as well.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think that's important. How early should you notify your current tenant that the rent is going up to renew the lease?
Good question. So we actually start this process about 90 days prior to the lease expiring. And the reason why is because we have to get with our owners and say, hey, this is what the comparables look like. We do a market analysis to kind of see what the rents have increased in the area. And then we give a recommendation to our owner investor. And then at that point, we go ahead and send it out to the tenant. So I would say at least 90 days prior is probably a good practice.
I would say that's a good practice too. Used to be a tenant, that's a good enough time to also figure out, do you want to go somewhere else,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I wanted to kind of add to that too. So before you're doing a renewal, making sure that you've inspected the property, right? Because of course you don't want to offer renewal to the tenant if there's damages to the property or something's going on there. So always have an inspection prior to you renewing the property.
Good point. Yeah, someone asking, is owning notes safer than renting? I think we're comparing two different things here. Risk versus reward. One's more passive, one's very active.
again, it all depends on your goals, right? And
Yeah.
so, I mean, if you are wanting to rent a property, I mean, that's there's going to be more involvement in that, right?
Yeah. I think I can add to this from an IRA perspective. A note is an asset that's going to be less headachy for you within a retirement account, right? With rental properties, you're dealing with also IRA rules and making sure the expenses get paid to the IRA. So notes, I would say, are fairly more popular in your IRA account than they would be a rental property, unless you figured out, a way to, have a property management do everything. But yeah, I think that's also going to depend on the person and what they're looking for. I personally do notes myself right now, but I want to get into rentals, and so it's kind of like,
you might want to diversify, maybe do a little bit of notes, maybe some rental properties. I know that we have, several investment vehicles ourselves that we put our money into. So
the questions are firing in. Can we use the false statements about criminal convictions on application to evict a tenant if convictions are over 7 years old? Very specific.
So can we make sure I understand the question? Can we use false statements about criminal convictions on applications to evict this tenant if convictions are over 7? I mean, so if you, again, I mean, if you find that you'll know if the tenant has been convicted when you apply for the property. I mean, after the fact, I mean, you can't evict him after that, right? You can do the screening ahead of time and you see it on the background check. Then at that point, you don't have to go through with the application. But say that you have an applicant in there and, after the fact you do a screening and you find that, you really can't, right? So and it's going to be hard for you to evict a tenant anyway, especially in today's market. So my recommendation is just wait until the lease is up and just don't renew the lease.
That's a good segue to the following question, because it's something about happening after the fact. So if an individual requires a motion support animal after they've already moved in and probably maybe even signed with you and said that they don't need an animal, what to do?
So we actually kick that back to pet screening, and they have to start the pet screening process all over again. And so they have to meet their criteria to be allowed for that.
Gotcha. I can see how a tenant would, they want 7 pit bulls. I'm just going to do it after.
It happens all the time. Yep. Yeah. That happened to that tenant where he said he had 3 pit bulls as an emotional support and wanted to add them through, and it didn't go through.
Yeah. This is interesting. Seems like it came from experience. Joe, how to get a neighbor to pay half of replacing a fence?
Yeah, so good question there. So oftentimes what we do is we actually contact the neighbor. A lot of times they're also rentals, but we'll contact the owners and try to make an agreement to replace the fence. And a lot of time, because we are property management companies, we get pretty good bids from vendors because we give them a lot of work. So that's key, is just talking to them. And if they know that they're getting a good price on it, we typically don't have issues with splitting the cost.
Cool. We're going to do the last 3 questions here and let Joni enjoy her Saturday. Thank you. But do you provide your residents with a checklist on what to do before they move out in order to get a better chance of getting part of all of their deposit back? Okay.
Absolutely. That should be part of your process. That's a great question there. So they get move out instructions when they give us notice, and it gives them a list of items that they must do prior to moving out to make sure that, they get their security deposit back. A lot of that is making sure the property is clean, making sure, that they touch up paint, all that good stuff. But yes, having a detailed checklist for them will help them in the event that, they will leave the property in pretty good condition. I don't have a lot of damages because I give them that move out checklist.
Gotcha. Makes sense. It's this one here. Based on your extensive history of flipping, were you classified and taxed as a professional flipper, or were you able to avoid that classification?
I was not able to avoid that classification. So, I mean, we, obviously, we were taxed on it, of course, but, it's a long history of being a flipper since 19 years old. So I've made a lot of mistakes along the way and not knowing what I was doing. So.
And lastly, 19 years old, that's impressive. Yeah. It's good. How much does pet screening cost?
Pet screening does not cost you anything. So it actually costs the tenant, and it's like $15 for them to screen their pets. But what's nice too is, so it gives them a nice, so if they do have a pet, right, and say that they have a 5-star paw score, they actually get a report of that. So if they're staying at a hotel that requires screening, or if they stay at like a park that requires screening, all they got to do is provide that report to them. So it's actually beneficial to have that.
Awesome. Well, that wraps it up. Thank you guys for the questions. Thank you guys for participating this Saturday. Everyone go ahead and enjoy. Hopefully you guys have good weather. Joni, thank you for your time. It was a great presentation. I think very, very helpful. Everyone who wants to maybe play it back, I know there's a few things and tips that they can take screenshots of. Just go to our YouTube. It'll be right there. As soon as we end this broadcast, it'll automatically go to our YouTube page. So just go ahead and check that out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me here today. I enjoyed it.
Thanks, guys.